History of revenue management. Revenue management was first used by airlines in the United States. It all started with the Regulation Act in 1978, which loosened actually the control of airline prices that have been previously highly or strictly regulated based on some standardized price and profitability targets. And that sparked innovations, and a lot of innovations, for example, in computerized reservation systems or global distribution systems for selling and tickets through travel agents. Right? These were created. Also, the new ideas of hub and spoke networks were created. Hub and spoke is a way to connect multiple points by having flights from each of those points to a hub, and then from a hub to each of those points, right? That allows you to dramatically reduce the number of connections and still cover a very large number of points or cities, right, or airports. Also, the innovations that were, or actually, the Regulation Act created an opportunity to create low-cost airlines, right? And so, low-cost airlines entered the market. They were based on low labor cost, right? They provide no-frills service. They could offer much lower prices than the major airlines, right? And there were some new customer segments, like new leisure travelers, that would otherwise maybe drive across the United States, or maybe they wouldn't even travel. Now there was flights that were cheap enough for them to buy, and right, and so this was a new customer segments that suddenly could be served, right? But unfortunately, also from for the major airlines, some leisure travelers shifted from those major airlines to low-cost airlines, right? Maybe business travelers, most of them still preferred convenience and the service of the regular major airlines, but you could see that this costed some of the major airlines some lost demand and lost revenue. So one of those low-cost airlines was People Express, that was established in 1981. It had, 50 to 70% lower prices than the major airline, and in 3 years, by 1984, it had a very high revenue and significant profits. So major airlines needed a strategy to somehow recapture the leisure travelers. And they recognized very quickly that head-to-head price war with the low-cost airlines would be a suicide. So one of the leaders of change was Robert Crandall, American Airlines VP of Marketing, who recognized that the airline already produces seats at near zero marginal cost, right? Because most of the costs are of the flight are fixed. Once you schedule the flight, most of the cost is already fixed, and the marginal cost, the variable cost per seat, is actually very small. So what he realized is that what was needed is to offer high price product to business customers and a low price to leisure customers, something we see now regularly. That was the novelty at that time. Of course, the problem was that business customers should not switch to buy the low price products, right? And somehow you didn't want to sell low price tickets to too many customers, because they would take space for the higher paying business customers, right? Who maybe want to reserve at the last minute, at least some of them. So the solution was to try and have some purchase restrictions on the low price. For example, a 30-day advance purchase, right? Often business travelers want to buy just a few days before the flight, or make them non-refundable, and if you don't use them, they're lost, right? Or introduce a 7-day minimum stay. Again, business travelers often fly for much shorter, and if you're a leisure traveler, you fly for a holiday, you're very likely to go for a longer stay, like a 7-day or longer, right? And another part of the solution was to have a booking limit on the number of low-price seats, low-price seats on each flight. So the idea was, if I have 100 seats, I have to figure out how many of those seats I can sell at a lower price so that there is enough available for the business travelers when they come perhaps late to book the flight, right? Of course, the problem here is we cannot have the same booking limit on every flight. Some flights will be much more popular with business travelers than others. So the solution which was introduced in 1985 was this system called Dynamo, Dynamic Inventory Allocation and Maintenance Optimizer. It was really the first large revenue management system that was trying to figure out those booking limits and try to maximize revenue from the fixed capacity of the airline. So with Dynamo, American Airlines could suddenly compete with People Express on prices for leisure travelers while still selling high price products to business travelers. So they were actually winning on both segments, and the impact on People Express was dramatic. Donald Barr, CEO of People Express, said this: "We were a vibrant, profitable company from 1981 to 85, and then we tipped right over into losing 50 million a month. We were still the same company. What changed was Americans' ability to widespread to do widespread yield management in every one of our markets. We had been profitable from the day we started until American came with us with the ultimate super savers. So you see that they suddenly could offer this different ticket, right, with a much lower price without undercutting their business high price products for business travelers, right? That was the end of our run because they were able to underprice us at will and surreptitiously. Obviously, People Express failed. We did a lot of things right, but we didn't get our hands around yield management and automation issues. If I were to do it again, the number one priority on my list every day would be to see if my people get the best information technology tools. In my view, that's what drives airline revenues today more than any other factor, more than service, more than planes, more than routes. And the result was in actually 1986, just 5 years after it started, People Express went bankrupt and it was sold to Continental. The reality is that today no airline can survive without revenue management. And actually, many other firms started adopting or using revenue management. So there are many examples. Some early ones were Ford for car sales and dealerships, National Car Rentals, and then hotels and many other companies. One more comment is that obviously we now have a lot of low-cost airlines and they do quite well in the market, but obviously they are much more aware of revenue management. They do use revenue management themselves too. So they actually do not repeat the mistakes of People Express. I think People Express went bankrupt because it was a shock, a sudden change, a sudden challenge that they were faced with, and they weren't able to cope with it fast enough in order to survive. That's why they went bankrupt. But as such, the low-cost airline idea is, of course, is a very sound idea, as can be seen by the existence of a lot of low-cost airlines currently in the market.